Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about all of the raid changes from the Burning Crusade Classic to Classic Wrath of the Lich King. Now this video is going to be short and sweet, no mucking about, no beating around the bush. There's a number of changes when it comes to raid size, difficulty modes, compositions, debuffs and buffs, lockout rules, emblems and consumables, and all of that will be explained in much detail in this video. By the way guys, just before we jump in, if you're looking for a really good leveling guide to get some characters leveled up for Wrath and a really good gold guide to make some gold before Wrath is released, you'll find information about all of that in the description down below. And don't forget to follow me on Twitch guys. Now, first thing to talk about is raid size. So every raid can be done on either 10-man mode or 25-man mode. And they have absolutely separate lockouts in Wrath of the Lich King, and that does later change in Cataclysm. 25 mode will have better loot than 10-man mode and is naturally considered a step up in difficulty. It's important to note that many groups will likely do 18-man mode groups because there's a higher chance for you to get loot, obviously, especially when it comes to VOA class runs, since this raid drops class tier gear. It's very common for people to do 18-man modes for the previous tier of raids like Naxxramas, since it is so easy. People also do 5-man Flame Leviathan runs, which is the first boss of Ulduar, since it's so easy to kill since you are in siege machines doing that boss. Now let's talk about difficulty settings. As I said, you have your 10-man mode and then your 25-man mode, which is more difficult, but when Ulduar rocks up, you then have access to hard modes. You don't activate a separate difficulty mode in Ulduar before you enter the instance. You have to do the fight in a different way. You basically make the fight harder for yourself to complete the hard mode to get better loot. For instance, on the Iron Council fight, you make the fight harder by changing the kill order. So you kill Rune Master, Mulgheim, Stormcaller, and then Steelbreaker, and then for the normal mode you would do Steelbreaker, Rune Master, and then Stormcaller. And then sometimes it's very simple, like on Mimiron, you just press a big red button at the back of the room to activate the hard mode. Technically all the raid bosses have a hard mode because they will have a Glory of the Raider-like achievement attached to them, and when you kill all of the bosses on their hard mode and get that achievement for the entire raid, you will get a mount reward like the Ironbound Proto-Drake or the Plagued Proto-Drake. Furthermore, when Trial of a Grand Crusader turns up, there will be heroic modes of the raid like there is on retail. These will obviously be more difficult with buff damage, HP pulls and new mechanics. Also unique to Trial of a Grand Crusader, there will be a tribute chest at the end of the raid with extra loot. The extra loot depends on how many times you wiped. The more you wipe, the worse the loot, and if you don't wipe at all, you can get extremely high item level cloaks at the end on par with ICC gear and a cheeky little mount reward as well. But if you wipe too many times while trying to attempt the entire raid for the week, then you will forfeit the tribute chest at the end. This carries on to Icecrown Citadel. There will be a 10-man mode and a 25-man mode, and then heroic modes of each individual mode. And you have to complete all the bosses on normal mode before unlocking the heroic mode version. But you only need one person to have done that to unlock it for everyone else in the raid. Now let's talk about lockout rules. So now you can actually extend lockouts. 10 and 25-man will have separate lockouts. Unfortunately, you still can't kill a boss you've already killed like you can on retail. You just cannot go into someone else's raid ID. In Trial of a Grand Crusader, you can do 10-man normal, 10-man heroic, 25-man normal and 25-man heroic all in 1 week. But in ICC this changes so that 10-man normal and 10-man heroic share the same lockout, and the same goes for 25-man mode. But in ICC you can change whether you're doing heroic mode or normal mode while progressing through the raid. So if you're doing a heroic run but you're struggling to progress on a particular boss on heroic, then you can just pop it back down to normal and Bob's your uncle. It was common practice for people to quickly turn heroic mode on for the gunship battle because that was fairly easy to do on heroic. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they changed the raid lockout rules to the Icecrown Citadel raid lockout rules for the Trial of a Grand Crusader. Now, when it comes to composition, the motto that devs had was bring a player, not the class. Many classes will be able to provide the same raid buffs and raid debuffs. Let's take a little look at the Wrath of the Lich King comp maker. So for example, a Frost Death Knight and an Enhancement Shaman can provide the 20% melee haste buff to the raid. And Holy Death Knight can provide the 30% extra spell damage, and so can a Warlock. A Beast Mastery Hunter can provide the 30% extra bleed damage, and so can a Feral Druid, and so on and so forth. The point is, there won't be anywhere near as much class stacking in Wrath compared to TBC and Classic WoW, or Shaman stacking, since many buffs like Bloodlust are raid-wide and not just party-wide. Plus, this is when the Bloodlust debuff is introduced, where players can't benefit from Bloodlust for 10 minutes after it has been popped. Now when it comes to emblems, honestly it's kind of annoying how emblems work in Wrath. I've not really liked it, it's not really my cup of tea because there's so many different types rather than just having 2 types like there was in Cataclysm. But anyway, usually there's the most recent emblems, like Emblems of Frost that are going to drop from ICC, and then Emblems of Justice that drop from Trial of the Grand Crusader. There will be badge vendors for every tier of content that normally have some decent gear, if not best in slot gear. So when it comes to consumes, first of all you've got your flask. This only lasts 1 hour in Wrath of the Lich King unfortunately, but 2 hours if you are an alchemist. You've also got your food buff. This is also the expansion where fish feasts are introduced, so one person can buy a fish feast and give the food buff to everyone. Then you have your potions. These work differently in Wrath. You pop one before the fight, and then again in the middle of the fight because they can't be used twice in combat. People are normally just going to stick to DPS ones, because DPS classes will not really have mana issues in Wrath of the Lich King. Some people also use scrolls, for instance. Some people like to use Scroll of Spirit since this will increase the DPS of some classes. More hardcore players will use stuff like Flame Caps, and then there's also food that does actually buff the pet. Now let's finish with some last second notes. So first of all, there's no resistance gear needed in the whole expansion. Some people might want it for a particular boss in Ulduar, but really it's just not needed. You just cycle tank cooldowns. Tanks generate much more aggro in Wrath of the Lich King. It's going to be very difficult for you to pull aggro off a tank. You'll have to be pumping extremely hard. There's no attunements to any raids, apart from Eye of Eternity technically, because you have to get the key from Sapphiron, the second to last boss in Naxxramas, to obviously unlock it. There will be more tier gear, so there's going to be a tier set that drops from 10-man mode and 25 mode, and then later there'll be an extra tier set for heroic modes. There's a legendary healing mace obtainable in Ulduar, and obviously Shadowmourne is available in Icecrown Citadel that the Warriors, Death Knights and Paladins will be fighting over. And that is pretty much everything, guys. Let me know if I've forgotten anything in the comment section below. My name is MetaGoblin. In the next video, ciao.